A little girl opened the door for a bear on the street. What she did next surprised everyone. In a small rural town in Montana, surrounded by majestic mountains and endless fields, lived a 3-year-old girl named Hope, along with her mother, Lucy. Life had not been easy for them since Hope's father left, leaving them alone to face a world that often seemed too big and hostile. Lucy, a woman with tired but determined eyes, worked tirelessly at 2 jobs to support her little daughter. She left before dawn and returned after the sun had set, leaving Hope in the care of an elderly neighbor during the day. Despite her efforts, loneliness was a constant companion for the little girl. Hope was an introverted child, with big brown eyes that seemed to contain all the sadness in the world. She had no friends her age. Her only company was an old rag doll, inherited from her grandmother, which she called Rosie. Together, Hope and Rosie spent hours in the small backyard of the house, creating imaginary worlds where joy and adventure reigned. On a particularly hot summer afternoon, as Hope played in the yard, something extraordinary happened. A huge shadow was cast over the weathered wooden gate, catching the girl's attention. Curious, Hope approached with cautious steps, her heart beating with a mixture of fear and excitement. Upon reaching the gate, she was left breathless. On the other side, a huge brown bear was staring at her. Its dense fur shone under the afternoon sun, and its eyes, a deep amber, reflected a weariness and wisdom that seemed out of place in an animal. Old scars furrowed its face and body, silently telling stories of past struggles and survival. Instead of feeling afraid at the presence of such an imposing creature, Hope felt an instant connection, an empathy she couldn't explain in words. With trembling hands, she took out a piece of bread she had saved from her lunch and threw it over the gate. The bear made no movement towards the bread. Instead, it kept its gaze fixed on Hope, as if it were evaluating the little girl's soul. This silent exchange seemed to last an eternity, though it was only a few seconds. Driven by a force she didn't understand, Hope did something that would have horrified any adult. She opened the gate. The creak of the rusty hinges broke the silence, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. The bear hesitated, its eyes moving between Hope and the open path to the yard. Finally, with a gentle movement that contrasted with its size, it crossed the threshold. Now, in Hope's small yard, the animal seemed even larger, but the girl felt no fear. On the contrary, a strange sense of security enveloped her. They looked at each other again, this time with no barriers between them. Hope extended her small hand, wanting to touch the bear's fur to feel its warmth. The bear lowered its huge head, allowing the contact. Hope's hand sank into the soft, thick fur, and a smile, the first genuine smile in a long time, lit up her face. This magical moment was abruptly interrupted by a crash coming from the back of the house. The sound of metal clashing against metal and breaking glass shattered the bubble of tranquility that had formed around Hope and her new friend. The bear reacted instantly. With surprising speed for its size, it turned towards the source of the noise and ran in that direction, leaving Hope momentarily paralyzed by surprise. The girl blinked, trying to process what was happening, and then, moved by curiosity and concern, followed the bear with hesitant steps. Rounding the corner of the house, Hope encountered a scene she would never forget. 2 men, dressed entirely in black with balaclavas covering their faces, were attempting to force open the back door of the house. One of them already had half his body inside a broken window, while the other nervously watched the surroundings. The bear, standing at its full height, roared with a force that made the walls of the house tremble. The intruders, surprised by the sudden appearance of such a beast, reacted with panic. The man who was outside the house stumbled backward and fell, while his companion, trapped halfway through the window, struggled desperately to free himself. In a matter of seconds, the first man managed to get to his feet and ran off, quickly disappearing down the path that led to the town. The other, however, was not so lucky. Trapped among the broken glass and paralyzed by fear, he remained motionless, unable to flee or defend himself. The bear slowly advanced towards the intruder, its heavy steps resonating in the silence that had fallen over the yard. Hope watched the scene with a mixture of amazement and fear, hidden behind a bush. She saw how the bear stopped a few meters from the man, growling softly but not attacking. The thief, visibly trembling, raised his hands in surrender. "Please," he pleaded in a broken voice. "Don't hurt me. I'll leave and never come back, I swear." To everyone's surprise, the bear simply sat down, effectively blocking any escape route but without making any aggressive movement. Its intelligent eyes moved between the intruder and Hope, as if deciding what to do next. At that moment, the sound of sirens in the distance broke the tension. Someone, probably an alarmed neighbor, had called the police. The thief, still trapped in the window, let out a sob of relief mixed with resignation. Minutes later, which seemed like hours, 2 police patrol cars arrived at the house. The officers, at first surprised and cautious at the presence of the bear, quickly assessed the situation. Carefully, they managed to pull the intruder out of the window and handcuff him, while keeping a watchful eye on the huge animal that, surprisingly, remained calm throughout the process. As the police took the arrested thief away, one of them approached Hope, who had come out of her hiding place. "Are you okay, little one?" he asked in a kind voice. Hope nodded, her eyes going from the officer to the bear and back. "He protected me," she said in a soft but firm voice, pointing to the animal. The officer looked at the bear with a mixture of amazement and respect. "Looks like you have a very special guardian," he commented, still not quite believing what he was seeing. "We'll need to talk to your mom. Do you know what time she gets back?" Before Hope could answer, the sound of a car approaching at high speed filled the air. Lucy, Hope's mother, had been alerted by the neighbors and had returned home earlier than usual. Her face was pale with concern as she ran towards her daughter. "Hope, my love," Lucy shouted, hugging her daughter tightly. "Are you okay? What happened?" Her eyes widened as she saw the huge bear sitting calmly in her yard, surrounded by police officers who looked as surprised as she was. One of the officers approached Lucy and began to explain the situation. As she listened to the account of the attempted robbery and the bear's surprising intervention, Lucy alternated her gaze between her daughter, the police, and the animal, trying to process the incredible series of events. "Mom," said Hope, gently tugging on her mother's skirt, "he saved us. He's my friend." The girl looked at the bear with a mixture of admiration and affection that moved everyone present. Lucy, still stunned, knelt beside her daughter. "Your friend?" she asked softly, looking at the bear with a mixture of fear and gratitude. The animal returned her gaze, its eyes conveying an intelligence and kindness that Lucy didn't expect to see in a wild creature. "Ma'am," one of the officers intervened, "we understand this is a very unusual situation. Normally we'd have to call animal control, but—" "No," Hope interrupted, with a surprising firmness for her age. "Please don't take him away. He protected us. He's good." Lucy looked at her daughter, then at the bear, and finally at the officers. She made a decision that would change their lives forever. "If possible," she said with a trembling but determined voice, "we'd like to take care of him, at least for now. He saved our house and my daughter. We owe him that and more." The officers exchanged looks of surprise and doubt. "Ma'am, I understand your gratitude, but it's a wild animal. It could be dangerous," one of them warned. "I know," Lucy replied, surprising herself with her determination. "But I also know that if he had wanted to harm us, he would have done it already. Please let us try. We'll call a veterinarian to examine him and take all necessary precautions." After a long discussion and having Lucy sign several documents exempting the police from responsibility, the officers finally agreed, though with evident concern. They promised to return the next day to see how the situation was going and make sure everything was in order. When the police left, Lucy, Hope, and the bear were left alone in the yard. Night had fallen, and the stars shone brightly in the dark sky. Lucy looked at the animal, which remained sitting quietly, as if it understood that this was now its home. "Well," said Lucy, exhausted but with a small smile on her lips, "I guess we'll need a name for you." Hope, who had been thoughtful, looked up with bright eyes. "Buddy," she exclaimed. "His name will be Buddy, because that's what he is." Lucy nodded, gently stroking her daughter's hair. "Buddy it is," she agreed, looking at the bear with a mixture of awe and hope. "Welcome to the family, Buddy." The bear, as if understanding, slowly approached and sat next to them. Together, forming an unlikely but touching image, the small family watched the stars, not knowing that this was just the beginning of an extraordinary adventure that would change not only their lives, but those of the entire community. The days following Buddy's arrival were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments for Lucy and Hope. The news of a bear living in someone's backyard spread quickly through the small town, attracting curious looks and concerned comments from neighbors. Lucy, true to her word, called a local veterinarian, Dr. Thompson, known for his experience with wild animals. On the day of the visit, the doctor arrived with a mixture of skepticism and professional fascination. "Well, Miss Lucy," said Dr. Thompson as he observed Buddy from a safe distance, "I must admit that in all my years of practice, I've never been called to attend to a bear in a backyard." Buddy, as if understanding the importance of the moment, remained calm, sitting next to Hope, who stroked his fur confidently. The examination was a challenge, but with patience and Buddy's surprising cooperation, Dr. Thompson managed to complete it. "It's extraordinary," he commented as he packed up his equipment. "This bear is not only in good physical condition, considering his old scars, but his behavior is unusual, to say the least." Lucy listened attentively, divided between relief and concern. "Is it safe for him to stay with us, Doctor?" she asked, her voice betraying her anxiety. Dr. Thompson remained thoughtful for a moment. "Ms. Lucy, under normal circumstances, I'd say no. A wild bear is not a pet, but this case is different. Buddy's behavior suggests he's had previous contact with humans, perhaps even training, and his bond with Hope is undeniable." He looked at the girl, who was laughing as Buddy gently sniffed her hair. "With proper precautions and constant monitoring, I think it could work." The veterinarian's words brought momentary relief to Lucy, but she knew the challenges were just beginning. The news of Buddy's presence had spread like wildfire in the town, and not everyone was so willing to accept the situation. One afternoon, as Lucy returned from her job at the local store, she found a group of neighbors waiting for her at her house door. Among them was Mr. Frank, the influential local rancher, known for his caution and influence in the community. "Lucy," Mr. Frank began, his deep voice laden with concern, "we understand what you've been through, and we're all grateful that Bear protected your home. But having a wild animal living in town, it's dangerous." Lucy felt a knot forming in her stomach. She knew this moment would come, but still wasn't prepared. "Mr. Frank, neighbors," she responded, trying to stay calm. "I understand your concern, but Buddy isn't dangerous. He's been here for days and hasn't harmed anyone. On the contrary, he's protected us." "And what will happen when the food in your yard runs out?" intervened another neighbor, Mrs. Rose. "What will prevent him from attacking our livestock, or, God forbid, our children?" Mrs. Rose's words unleashed a murmur of agreement among the neighbors. Lucy felt panic growing inside her, but before she could respond, a small but firm voice rose behind her. "Buddy won't hurt anyone," said Hope, who had come out upon hearing the commotion. "He's good and he takes care of us." The neighbors fell silent, surprised by the determination in the child's voice. Buddy, as if understanding the tension of the moment, slowly came out of the house and sat next to Hope, his presence imposing but peaceful. "Mr. Frank looked at the bear and then at the girl, his expression softening slightly. "I understand you've grown fond of him, little one," he said in a kinder voice, "but we must think about everyone's safety." Lucy, inspired by her daughter's bravery, stepped forward. "I propose something," she said, looking at each of her neighbors. "Give me a month. A month to show you that Buddy isn't a threat but a protector. If after that time you still feel he's a danger, we'll look for another solution." The neighbors looked at each other, murmuring and considering the proposal. Finally, Mr. Frank nodded slowly. "1 month," he agreed, "but we'll be watchful, Lucy. The safety of our town comes first." As the neighbors dispersed, Lucy allowed herself to breathe deeply. She knew she had gained time, but also that the coming days would be crucial. In the weeks that followed, Lucy and Hope dedicated themselves to integrating Buddy into their daily life and, by extension, into the life of the town. Every morning before going to work, Lucy would take Buddy and Hope for a walk along the edge of town. At first, people kept their distance, watching with a mixture of fear and curiosity. But little by little, the image of the huge bear walking peacefully next to the little girl began to become familiar. Hope, in her innocence, cheerfully greeted everyone who passed by, and Buddy's gentleness began to win supporters. One day, as they were walking near the town square, a small incident changed many people's perception. A boy, playing with his ball, threw it too hard, and it rolled towards the street just as a car was approaching. Before anyone could react, Buddy moved with surprising agility, stopping the ball with his paw and pushing it back to the boy, avoiding what could have been a tragic accident. The gesture did not go unnoticed. The boy's parents, initially terrified to see the bear move towards their son, were amazed by his protective action. This event became the talk of the town, and little by little the attitude towards Buddy began to change. Lucy, seeing an opportunity, began to involve Buddy in small community tasks. With Hope's help, they taught Buddy to pick up trash in the park and to help carry heavy baskets in the local market. The image of the big bear gently helping the town's elderly carry their shopping became a common and endearing sight. However, not everything was easy. Lucy still faced distrustful looks and whispered comments behind her back. Some neighbors, led by Mr. Frank, continued to insist that the presence of a wild animal in town was an unacceptable risk. One night as Lucy prepared dinner, she heard Hope talking in the yard. Curious, she peeked out the window and saw her daughter sitting next to Buddy, telling him a story. "And then the brave bear saved the whole village," Hope was saying, her eyes shining with excitement. And everyone realized that it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. What counts is what you have here, she added, pointing to her heart. Lucy felt her eyes moisten. At that moment, she understood that Buddy had not only changed their lives, but was teaching Hope invaluable lessons about acceptance and kindness. That night, as she tucked Hope in, the girl asked her a question that took her by surprise. "Mom," Hope asked with innocent curiosity, "why are some people afraid of Buddy?" Lucy sat on the edge of the bed, carefully considering her response. "Sometimes, my love, people fear what they don't understand. Buddy is different and that scares some. But with time, when they see how good he is, they'll learn to love him like we do." Hope nodded, processing her mother's words. "Then we have to show them how special Buddy is, right?" "That's right, honey," Lucy replied, kissing her daughter's forehead. "And we'll do it together." As Hope fell asleep, Lucy went out to the yard where Buddy was resting under the stars. She sat next to him, feeling the warmth of his body and the softness of his fur. "I don't know where you came from, Buddy," she whispered, "nor why you chose us. But I promise you we'll fight for you, just as you fought for us." Buddy, as if understanding every word, gently rested his huge head on Lucy's lap. At that moment, under the starry sky of their small town, Lucy felt that despite the challenges they faced, they had found something precious, an unconventional family, but one full of love and loyalty. The coming days would bring new challenges and surprises, but for now, in the quietness of the night, Lucy, Hope, and Buddy rested, united by a bond that defied all logic, but grew stronger with each passing day. As the days passed, Buddy's presence in the town was becoming an increasingly normal part of everyday life. However, the challenges were far from over for Lucy and Hope. The one-month deadline agreed with the neighbors was rapidly approaching, and the tension in the air was palpable. One sunny morning, as Lucy was preparing breakfast, she heard a commotion coming from the street. Looking out the window, she saw a group of people gathered in front of her house led by Mr. Frank. With a sigh of resignation, Lucy prepared to face what seemed to be another confrontation. "Lucy," Mr. Frank called with a firm but not hostile voice, "we need to talk. The month is almost over, and we need to make a decision about the situation." Lucy stepped out onto the porch, closely followed by Hope and Buddy. The girl clung to the bear's paw, as if fearing someone might take him away at any moment. "Mr. Frank, neighbors," Lucy began, trying to stay calm. "I know you're worried, but Buddy has shown time and time again that he's not a threat. He's been a protector for us and for the town." Before Mr. Frank could respond, a voice rose from the crowd. It was Mrs. Baker, the owner of the local bakery. "It's true," she said, stepping forward. "The other day, Buddy helped my grandson when he fell off his bicycle. Not only did he gently lift him up, but he carried the broken bicycle back to my house." This comment triggered a series of murmurs and other voices that rose to share similar experiences. Mr. Johnson, the mailman, mentioned how Buddy had helped him pick up letters scattered by the wind. Miss Rosa, the school teacher, spoke of how the children now eagerly waited to see Buddy on their morning walks. Mr. Frank listened attentively, his expression a mixture of surprise and reflection. Finally, he raised a hand to silence the murmurs. "I see that Buddy has touched many lives in our town," he said, his tone softer, "but I still have concerns. What will happen when winter comes and food becomes scarce? How can we be sure his instincts won't take over?" It was then that Hope, with a courage that surprised everyone, stepped forward. "Buddy is part of our family," she said in a clear and firm voice. "We will take care of him no matter the season, and he takes care of us and all of you. Isn't that what a family does?" A moving silence followed the girl's words. Lucy, with tears in her eyes, put a hand on her daughter's shoulder, proud of her wisdom and courage. Mr. Frank looked at Hope, then at Buddy, and finally at the gathered crowd. With a deep sigh, he made his decision. "Very well," he said. "Buddy can stay, but with conditions. We need to establish some clear rules to ensure everyone's safety." The next few hours were spent discussing and establishing guidelines for coexistence with Buddy. It was agreed that the bear should wear a collar with a bell to alert people of his presence, that he couldn't enter certain public spaces without supervision, and that Lucy would be responsible for any incidents. As the crowd dispersed, many approached Lucy and Hope to express their support. The tension that had enveloped the town for weeks was beginning to dissipate, replaced by cautious acceptance and, in some cases, genuine affection for Buddy. That night, after tucking Hope in, Lucy sat on the porch with Buddy. "We did it, my friend," she whispered, stroking his fur. "But our journey is just beginning." The following days brought new challenges and discoveries. Lucy, determined to better understand her unusual companion, began researching bears and their behavior. She spent her scarce free moments reading books borrowed from the small-town library and searching for information on the internet at the local cafe. One day, while leafing through a book on wildlife, Lucy came across a photograph that took her breath away. The image showed a bear very similar to Buddy, but with a crucial detail. It wore a small harness with badges. The caption under the photo spoke of an experimental program in a nature reserve several hundred miles away, where they trained bears for rescue and assistance tasks. With her heart racing, Lucy delved deeper into her research. She discovered that the program had been shut down years ago due to lack of funding, and the participating bears had been released into the wild. Could Buddy be one of those bears? Would that explain his unusually docile behavior and apparent training? Excited by her discovery, Lucy shared the information with Dr. Thompson during his next checkup visit. The veterinarian listened with growing interest. "This would explain a lot," said Dr. Thompson, examining Buddy's scars with a new perspective. "These marks could be from training harnesses, and his behavior, yes, it makes sense." As they discussed the implications of this discovery, Hope was playing in the yard with Buddy. The girl had developed a game where she hid small objects and asked Buddy to find them, something the bear did with surprising accuracy. "Mom, look!" Hope called excitedly. "Buddy can find anything I ask him to. He's like a superhero." Lucy and Dr. Thompson watched in amazement as Buddy, following Hope's instructions, located objects hidden in increasingly difficult places. The veterinarian shook his head in disbelief. "Incredible," he murmured. "This level of training and skill. Lucy, I think you're right. Buddy must have been part of that program, and for some reason, he chose to stay with you." The revelation about Buddy's past opened up new possibilities and challenges. Lucy wondered if she should try to contact those responsible for the old program. Would they want to reclaim Buddy? The idea of losing him caused a pain in her chest that she hadn't expected to feel. That night, as Hope slept, Lucy shared her concerns with Buddy. Sitting on the porch under the stars, as had become their custom, Lucy spoke softly. "I don't know what the future holds for us, Buddy," she said, her fingers intertwined in the bear's fur. "But I want you to know that no matter what happens, you'll always be part of our family." Buddy, as if understanding the depth of her words, gently rested his head on Lucy's lap. At that moment, under the starry blanket, Lucy felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Regardless of the challenges that might come, they would face the future together. Meanwhile, in town, rumors about Buddy's past were beginning to circulate. The idea that the bear might have special training aroused both curiosity and imagination among the inhabitants. Some began to see Buddy not just as an unusual pet, but as a valuable asset to the community. Mr. Frank, always pragmatic, began to consider how Buddy's skills could benefit the town. "If he's really trained for rescue tasks," he commented during a town council meeting, "he could be invaluable in emergencies." Mr. Frank's suggestion triggered a lively debate. Some saw the potential of having Buddy as a town guardian, while others remained cautious about trusting too much in a wild animal, no matter how well trained it might be. While the town debated, Lucy faced her own internal struggle. On one hand, she was excited about the possibilities that Buddy's past opened up. On the other, she feared that the more attention he received, the greater the risk that someone would try to take him away. One afternoon, as Lucy pondered these dilemmas, Hope came running, her eyes bright with excitement. "Mom! Mom! Look what Buddy can do." Lucy followed her daughter to the yard where Buddy was sitting patiently. Hope took a small backpack and put it on the bear, who remained perfectly still. "Now, Buddy," Hope said in a clear voice, "find Mom." To Lucy's amazement, Buddy got up, turned towards her and approached with a determined step. When he reached her side, he sat down and used his muzzle to open the backpack, revealing a small first aid kit. "See, Mom," Hope exclaimed. "Buddy can help people if they get hurt. He's like rescue dogs, but better because he's big and strong." Lucy was left speechless, observing the scene with a mixture of pride and concern. It was evident that the bond between Hope and Buddy went beyond a simple friendship between a girl and her pet. There was a mutual understanding, a connection that defied logic. At that moment, Lucy made a decision. She would protect Buddy and fight to keep him with them, not just for Hope's sake or her own, but because she felt that Buddy had a greater purpose in their lives and in the life of the town. With renewed determination, Lucy began to plan how to integrate Buddy more formally into the community. She knew she would face obstacles, but also that she had unexpected allies. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Lucy looked at it with hope and anticipation. As the sun set over the small town, bathing the sky in golden and pink hues, Lucy, Hope, and Buddy sat together on the porch. The unconventional image of a woman, a girl, and a giant bear sharing a moment of tranquility perfectly captured the essence of their extraordinary story, a story of love, acceptance, and the transformative power of an unexpected friendship. Dawn arrived in the small town with a different energy. The news about Buddy's past and his special abilities had spread quickly, awakening a mixture of excitement and curiosity among the inhabitants. Lucy woke up early, her mind full of ideas and concerns about how to handle this new situation. As she prepared breakfast, she heard Hope's soft footsteps approaching the kitchen. The girl entered, rubbing her sleepy eyes, closely followed by Buddy, who moved with surprising grace for his size. "Good morning, my love," Lucy greeted, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Did you sleep well?" Hope nodded, sitting at the table. "Mom, is it true that Buddy is a real hero? I heard Mrs. Baker say so yesterday at the bakery." Lucy smiled, serving breakfast. "Buddy is special, that's for sure. But being a hero isn't just about having unique abilities. It's about how you use those abilities to help others." As they were having breakfast, someone knocked on the door. It was Mr. Frank, accompanied by Chief Roberts, the town's fire chief. Lucy invited them in, noticing the serious expression on their faces. "Lucy, Mr. Frank began, "we've been discussing Buddy and his special talents. We believe he could be of great help to the town." Chief Roberts nodded, his gaze alternating between Lucy and Buddy. "Our fire department is small, and sometimes we face difficult situations. If Buddy is truly trained for rescue tasks, he could be invaluable in emergencies." Lucy listened attentively, her heart beating fast. On one hand, she felt proud that Buddy was being recognized as a valuable asset. On the other, she feared the implications of involving him in potentially dangerous situations. "I understand your interest," Lucy said carefully, "but Buddy isn't just a service animal. He's part of our family. I can't simply lend him for dangerous missions." Hope, who had been listening silently, intervened. "But Mom, didn't you say that being a hero is about helping others? If Buddy can help, shouldn't we let him?" Hope's words resonated in the room. Lucy looked at her daughter, surprised by her wisdom. Buddy, as if understanding the conversation, approached and gently rested his head on Lucy's lap. Mr. Frank smiled softly. "Your daughter is right, Lucy. We're not asking for Buddy to become a full-time firefighter, but his help in specific situations could make a difference." After a long conversation, they reached an agreement. Buddy would participate in training sessions with the fire department to assess his abilities and limits. Any participation in real missions would be strictly voluntary and under Lucy's supervision. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. The fire department's training field became the center of attention in the town. Inhabitants of all ages gathered to watch Buddy demonstrate his skills. Under Chief Roberts' patient guidance, Buddy showed a surprising ability to navigate through obstacles, locate hidden objects, and most impressively, rescue dummies from simulated danger situations. One afternoon, during a particularly intense training session, something unexpected happened. As Buddy was completing an obstacle course, a group of children watching from nearby began to cheer loudly. The sudden sound startled Buddy, who stopped abruptly, seeming momentarily confused and agitated. Lucy, who was observing from the side, felt a pang of concern. It was the first time she had seen Buddy lose his composure. She rushed towards him, but before she could reach him, Hope was already there. The girl approached Buddy without fear, speaking to him softly and stroking his fur. Gradually, the bear calmed down, his breathing returning to normal. The scene did not go unnoticed by Chief Roberts and others present. "It's incredible," Chief Roberts commented, approaching Lucy. "The bond between Hope and Buddy, I've never seen anything like it." Lucy nodded, a mixture of pride and concern on her face. "They're inseparable. Sometimes I wonder who's taking care of whom." That night, as Lucy tucked Hope into bed, the girl asked a question that took her by surprise. "Mom, do you think Buddy misses his old life? The life before he met us?" Lucy sat on the edge of the bed, thoughtful. "I don't know, honey, but I think if he missed it, he wouldn't have stayed with us. I think he chose us, just as we chose him." Hope smiled, satisfied with the answer. "We're his new pack, aren't we?" "Yes, my love," Lucy replied, kissing her daughter's forehead. "We're his pack." As Hope fell asleep, Lucy went out to the porch where Buddy was resting. She sat next to him, reflecting on the day's events. "You've come a long way, my friend," she whispered, stroking his fur. "I wonder what other secrets you're keeping." As if responding to her words, Buddy raised his head and looked towards the horizon. For a moment, Lucy thought she saw a spark of something in his eyes. Nostalgia, longing. But as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, and Buddy rested his head on his paws again, content. Days turned into weeks, and Buddy became increasingly integrated into the life of the town. His presence at fire department training sessions became routine, and the inhabitants grew accustomed to seeing the big brown bear walking down the streets, often accompanied by Hope or Lucy. However, not everything was perfect. Despite growing acceptance, there were still those who looked at Buddy with suspicion. Some parents, worried, kept their children away, fearing the bear might lose control at any moment. One afternoon, as Lucy was shopping at the local market, she overheard a conversation that chilled her blood. "I heard some guys from the city are coming," a man was saying in a low voice. "They say they want to take the bear away to study it." "Study it?" another voice replied. "I heard they want to use it for some kind of experiment." Lucy felt her heart skip a beat. Was her worst fear coming true? Was someone coming to take Buddy away? That night, unable to sleep, Lucy sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, her mind racing. What could she do to protect Buddy? Should they run? Hide? As she contemplated her options, she heard a soft knock on the back door. Opening it, she found herself face to face with Mr. Frank. "Lucy," the older man said, his voice laden with concern, "we need to talk. News has arrived. About Buddy." Lucy felt the world stop. This was the moment she had feared since Buddy entered their lives. But as she invited Mr. Frank in, she promised herself that, whatever happened, she would fight with all her might to keep her family together. The conversation that followed would change the course of their lives forever, bringing new challenges and revelations that would test the bonds that united this unconventional family. But Lucy was determined. They would face whatever came together, as the pack they were. Lucy's kitchen, normally a space of warmth and comforting aromas, felt cold and tense that night. Mr. Frank sat at the table, his face marked by lines of worry. Lucy, her heart racing, prepared for the worst. "Lucy," Mr. Frank began, his voice grave, "I've received a call from the state capital. A group of scientists has learned about Buddy's presence in our town. They're interested in studying him." Lucy felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Her fears were materializing. "Studying him?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "What does that mean exactly?" Mr. Frank sighed deeply. "From what I understand, they want to take him to a research center. They say Buddy could be the key to understanding how animals can be trained for complex rescue and assistance tasks." "No," Lucy said, her voice gaining strength. "They can't take him. Buddy isn't an experiment. He's part of our family." "I know, Lucy," Mr. Frank responded sympathetically, "but I'm afraid it's not that simple. These scientists have connections in the government. If they insist, they could obtain an order to take Buddy away." Lucy stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I won't allow it," she declared. "We'll fight this. The entire town has seen how special Buddy is, how he's helped us. Surely that counts for something." Mr. Frank nodded slowly. "You're right. The town is on your side, Lucy. But we'll need more than good intentions to face this. We need a plan." As they discussed possible strategies, a soft noise interrupted them. Hope was standing in the kitchen doorway, her eyes large and frightened. "Mum," she said with a trembling voice, "are they going to take Buddy away?" Lucy rushed to hug her daughter. "No, my love, not if we can help it. Buddy is part of our family and we'll fight for him." Hope clung to her mother, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. "But what if they come and take him by force? What if they hurt Buddy?" Hope's question hung in the air, heavy and painful. Lucy looked at Mr. Frank, seeking an answer that could calm her daughter's fears. Mr. Frank stood up and approached them, kneeling to be at Hope's level. "Little one," he said in a soft but firm voice, "the whole town loves Buddy. We won't let anyone take him away without a fight. But we need your help. We need you to be brave." Hope wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "My help? What can I do?" "You know Buddy better than anyone," Mr. Frank responded. "Your connection with him is special. That could be crucial in convincing these scientists that Buddy belongs here. With you." Mr. Frank's words ignited a spark of hope in Hope's eyes. She nodded with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect Buddy." The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity in the town. The news of the threat to Buddy spread quickly, and the community united like never before. A committee led by Mr. Frank was formed to prepare a legal and media defense. Lucy, meanwhile, immersed herself in frantic research. With the help of Dr. Thompson and some contacts she had made during her initial search into Buddy's past, she began to compile all the information possible about the training program that Buddy had been part of. One afternoon, while reviewing some old documents in the town library, Lucy made a surprising discovery. Among the yellowed papers, she found a faded photo showing a group of researchers with several bears, including one that looked very much like Buddy. On the back of the photo, a blurred inscription, "Project Guardian, Final Phase 2010. With trembling hands, Lucy continued her investigation. She discovered that Project Guardian had been an ambitious government program designed to train animals in rescue and assistance tasks. Buddy, apparently, had been one of the most promising subjects of the project. Armed with this new information, Lucy called an urgent meeting with Mr. Frank and the committee leaders. "This changes everything," she explained, spreading the documents on the table. "Buddy isn't just a randomly trained bear. He's part of a government project. If we can contact the original researchers, maybe they can help us." The revelation sparked a wave of renewed activity. Mr. Frank used his contacts to track down the scientists involved in Project Guardian. Meanwhile, the town prepared for the imminent arrival of the research team from the capital. In the midst of all this chaos, Hope remained surprisingly serene. She spent every free moment with Buddy, as if wanting to engrave every second in her memory. One afternoon, while walking in the forest near the town, Hope noticed something unusual in Buddy's behavior. The bear stopped abruptly, his nose in the air, sniffing intensely. Before Hope could react, Buddy plunged into the thick of the forest, moving with an urgency the girl had never seen before. "Buddy, wait!" Hope shouted, running after him. Her heart was pounding as she followed her furry friend through bushes and over rocks. After what seemed like an eternity, Buddy stopped in a small clearing. Hope, panting, looked around, confused. There didn't seem to be anything special about this place, but then she saw it. Half hidden among the roots of an ancient tree was a small bundle of fur. Buddy approached carefully and, to Hope's amazement, gently nudged the bundle with his muzzle. A faint whimper filled the air. It was a bear cub, small and clearly weakened. Hope approached cautiously, her heart melting at the sight of the little animal. "Oh, Buddy," she whispered, "how did you know it was here?" In response, Buddy lay down next to the cub, protectively surrounding it with his body. Hope watched in wonder as the big bear cared for the little one, gently licking it and keeping it warm. At that moment, Hope had an epiphany. Buddy wasn't just a trained bear. He was a being with deep emotions, capable of empathy and compassion. This was the secret they had been looking for, the proof they needed to demonstrate that Buddy was much more than a simple subject of study. With her heart full of emotion and determination, Hope took out the small cell phone her mother had given her for emergencies. With trembling fingers, she dialed Lucy's number. "Mom," she said as soon as Lucy answered, her voice full of emotion and urgency, "you need to come to the forest. Quick, and bring Dr. Thompson. We've found something that will change everything." As she waited for her mother and the veterinarian to arrive, Hope sat next to Buddy and the cub. She watched in amazement as the big bear cared for the little one, his actions full of a gentleness and protective instinct that defied any scientific explanation. In that forest clearing, surrounded by nature and Buddy's unconditional love, Hope knew they had found the key to saving their friend and, perhaps, to changing the way the world viewed these magnificent animals. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in golden and pink hues. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees, as if nature itself was holding its breath, waiting to see how this extraordinary story of friendship, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between species would unfold. The forest vibrated with an unusual energy as Lucy and Dr. Thompson hurried along the path, guided by Hope's directions. The setting sun tinted the sky an intense orange, casting long shadows between the trees. Lucy's heart was racing, a mixture of concern and curiosity about what her daughter had discovered. When they finally reached the clearing, the scene they found left them breathless. Buddy was lying on the ground, his enormous body forming a protective semicircle around a small bundle of fur. Hope was sitting nearby, her eyes bright with excitement. "Mom, Dr. Thompson," the girl whispered, gesturing for them to approach carefully. "Look what Buddy found." Dr. Thompson approached slowly, his years of experience evident in the caution of his movements. Upon seeing the small cub, his eyes widened. "Incredible," he murmured, kneeling to examine the animal. "It's a bear cub. Can't be more than a few weeks old. It's weak and dehydrated, but alive." Lucy watched the scene, amazed by Buddy's behavior. The big bear watched the veterinarian with attentive eyes, but allowed the examination of the cub without showing signs of aggression. "How did Buddy find it?" Lucy asked, her voice barely a whisper. Hope, her eyes shining with excitement, recounted the story of the walk in the forest and how Buddy had detected the cub's presence. "It's like he knew the baby needed help, Mom," Hope concluded. "He's not just a trained bear. He has emotions, he can feel and care for others." Dr. Thompson, who had finished his initial examination, turned to Lucy with an expression of amazement. "This is extraordinary," he said. "Buddy's behavior, it's not just instinct. It shows a level of empathy and care that challenges many of our assumptions about animal cognition." As they discussed what to do next, a noise in the nearby bushes startled them. "Mr. Frank emerged from the forest slightly out of breath. "Lucy," he began, catching his breath, "I was looking for you. The scientists from the capital, they've arrived in town." The announcement fell like a bomb in the small clearing. Lucy felt her heart skip a beat, but before she could respond, Hope spoke. "Let them come," the girl said with surprising determination. "Let them see this. Let them see who Buddy really is." The adults exchanged glances, surprised by the confidence in Hope's voice. After a moment of consideration, Lucy nodded. "You're right, my love," she said, stroking her daughter's hair. "This could be our best chance to show them that Buddy is much more than a subject of study." Mr. Frank, understanding the importance of the moment, offered to guide the scientists to the clearing. While they waited, Dr. Thompson worked to stabilize the cub, administering fluids and examining it further. The sun had already set when the sound of voices and footsteps announced the arrival of the scientists. A group of 5 people, dressed in field clothes but with an unmistakably academic air, emerged from among the trees. Dr. Elena Parker, the team leader, was the first to speak. "Mr. Frank explained to us that you've made an important discovery," she began, her voice professional but with a touch of curiosity. However, her words faded as her eyes fell on the scene before her. Buddy, the great bear they had come to study and possibly take away, was lying on the ground, his attention completely focused on a small cub. With a gentleness that seemed impossible for an animal of his size, Buddy was gently licking the cub, keeping it warm and comforted. The scientists observed in silence, their expressions a mixture of amazement and confusion. It was Dr. Thompson who broke the silence. "The adult bear, whom we call Buddy, found this abandoned cub in the forest," he explained. "He's been caring for it since then, showing a level of empathy and care that, frankly, defies many of our theories about animal behavior." Dr. Parker approached slowly, her eyes never leaving the scene in front of her. "This is extraordinary," she murmured. "We've studied bear behavior in captivity and in nature for years, but this—" Hope, who had been watching silently, stepped forward. With a clear and firm voice that surprised all present, she began to speak. "Buddy isn't just a bear," she said, looking directly at the scientists. "He's my friend, my protector. He understands when I'm sad or happy. He takes care of us, of the whole town. And now he's taking care of this baby. You can't take him away to study him as if he were a thing. He has feelings, he has a heart." Hope's words resonated in the clearing, charged with an emotion and wisdom that seemed to go beyond her years. The scientists listened in silence, visibly moved. Dr. Parker knelt to be at Hope's level. "I understand what you're saying, little one," she said softly. "And I think you're right. What we're seeing here, it's something that can't be replicated in a laboratory." Lucy, who had been holding her breath, felt a wave of hope. "Doctor," she said, stepping forward, "we understand the importance of your research. But Buddy isn't just a subject of study. He's part of our family, our community. He's saved lives. He's brought joy and unity to our town. Please help us keep him here where he belongs." Dr. Parker stood up slowly, looking at her team and then back at Buddy and the cub. After what seemed like an eternity, she spoke. "I came here thinking we would conduct groundbreaking research on animal cognition," she said. "But what I see here, and this is the real breakthrough, a bear showing this level of empathy and care, integrated into a human community, this changes everything." With a growing smile on her face, the doctor continued, "I think we found something much more valuable than what we expected. If you agree, I'd like to propose a new approach. Instead of taking Buddy to a laboratory, how about we establish a research program right here, in his natural habitat and with his adoptive family?" The proposal was received with a mixture of relief and excitement. Lucy felt an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. Mr. Frank, always pragmatic, was already thinking about the benefits this could bring to the town. While the adults discussed the details, Hope approached Buddy and the cub. She sat next to them, gently stroking Buddy's fur. "We did it, Buddy," she whispered. "Now you can stay with us forever." Buddy raised his head and looked at Hope, his eyes full of an intelligence and affection that went beyond words. Then, with a gentle movement, he brought the cub closer to Hope, as if inviting her to be part of this new chapter in their lives. As the night sky filled with stars, the small clearing in the forest became the stage for a new beginning. A beginning full of promises, discoveries to be made, and bonds that transcended the barriers between species. Lucy watched her daughter, Buddy, and the small cub, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. She knew the challenges weren't over, that there would be much work ahead. But she also knew that together, as the strange and wonderful family they were, they could face anything the future held for them. The forest seemed to whisper with new energy, as if nature itself was celebrating this unique union between humans and animals. And at the center of it all, Buddy, the bear who had changed so many lives, rested peacefully, protecting not just an orphaned cub, but an entire community that now considered him one of their own. The days that followed the encounter in the forest were a whirlwind of activity in the small town. The news that Buddy would stay and that a team of scientists would establish a research program right there spread quickly, generating a mixture of excitement and anticipation among the inhabitants. Lucy, Hope, and Buddy found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of changes. The house that once seemed too big and empty for mother and daughter now bustled with activity. Dr. Thompson had set up part of the backyard as a recovery area for the bear cub, which Hope had affectionately named Spark, for the spark of life it had shown in surviving alone in the forest. One morning, as Lucy prepared breakfast, she heard laughter coming from the yard. Looking out the window, she saw a scene that filled her heart with joy. Hope was sitting on the grass, reading a book aloud. Buddy was lying next to her, with Spark curled up between his paws, both bears seemingly attentive to every word from the girl. And so the brave bear protected the entire village, Hope read, her voice full of emotion. Everyone learned that we shouldn't judge by appearances, because the biggest and bravest heart can be hidden behind the most feared figure. Lucy smiled, recognizing the parallel between the story and their own situation. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. It was Dr. Parker with an expression of enthusiasm on her face. "Good morning, Lucy," the scientist greeted. "I have exciting news. We've received final approval to establish our research center here in town." Lucy invited her in, and as she served coffee, Dr. Parker explained the details of the project. "It will be a unique research center," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. "We'll not only study Buddy and Spark's behavior, but also how they interact with the community. This could revolutionize our understanding of animal cognition and interspecies relationships." As they discussed the plans, Hope entered the kitchen, closely followed by Buddy. The big bear moved carefully, aware of his size in the confined space. "Dr. Parker," Hope said with a smile, "do you want to see what Buddy can do? We've been practicing new tricks." The scientist nodded enthusiastically, and they all went out to the yard. There, Hope demonstrated how Buddy could now recognize and bring specific objects by name, communicate if he was hungry or thirsty through gestures, and even count up to 5 by gently tapping the ground with his paw. "Extraordinary," Dr. Parker murmured, taking notes frantically. "Buddy's ability to learn and adapt is simply amazing." As they watched, Spark came wobbling out of his shelter, immediately attracting Buddy's attention. The older bear approached the cub, gently guiding it back to the shade with soft touches of his muzzle. "And that," Lucy said, pointing to the interaction, "is the most amazing thing of all. The way Buddy cares for Spark, how he teaches him, it's like watching a father with his child." Dr. Parker nodded, her expression a mixture of awe and emotion. "This goes beyond anything we've documented before. The emotional complexity Buddy shows, it could fundamentally change our understanding of animal consciousness." Days turned into weeks, and the town began to transform. The research center, though modest in size, brought with it new energy and opportunities. Researchers and students from all over the country began to arrive, bringing not only knowledge but also new economic vitality to the small town. Mr. Frank, always attentive to the community's needs, worked tirelessly to ensure that the town benefited from these changes. New accommodations opened for visitors, local restaurants expanded their menus, and even a small bookstore specializing in nature and wildlife books was inaugurated. But not everything was perfect. As Buddy's fame and the research program grew, so did unwanted attention. Curious tourists began to arrive in increasing numbers, some respectful, others not so much. One afternoon, Lucy found Hope crying in her room. "What's wrong, my love?" she asked, sitting next to her daughter. "I heard some visitors in the square," Hope sobbed. "They were saying they wanted to see the bear that does tricks. But Buddy isn't a circus animal, Mum. He's our friend, our family." Lucy hugged her daughter, feeling her heart constrict. "You're right, honey. Buddy is much more than that, and it's our job to make sure everyone understands that." Inspired by her daughter's words, Lucy called a meeting with Mr. Frank, Dr. Parker, and other community leaders. Together, they developed a plan to educate visitors and protect Buddy and Spark from exploitation. Limited schedules for public visits were established, always under supervision. Educational programs were created that emphasized respect for wildlife and the importance of conservation. And most importantly, it was ensured that Buddy and Spark had ample periods of privacy and tranquility. As these changes were implemented, Lucy noticed a transformation in herself. The shy and reserved woman she once was giving way to a passionate and eloquent leader. She found herself giving talks to groups of visitors, sharing Buddy's story and the importance of empathy between species. One night, as Lucy tucked Hope into bed, the girl made an observation that took her by surprise. "Mom," Hope said with a sleepy smile, "you're like Buddy." "Like Buddy?" Lucy asked, intrigued. "What do you mean, honey?" "You're both protective and brave," Hope explained. "And you've both grown and changed since you met. Buddy learned to live with humans, and you've learned to be strong and to speak for those who don't have a voice." Lucy felt her eyes moisten. She kissed her daughter's forehead, marveling at the wisdom emanating from someone so young. "You're right, my love. Buddy has taught us all so much." That night, sitting on the porch under the stars, With Buddy by her side and the sound of Spark's soft breathing in the background, Lucy reflected on the incredible journey they had embarked on. From a life of loneliness and struggle, they had come to be at the center of something extraordinary, something that had the potential to change the way humans viewed and related to the natural world. As she stroked Buddy's fur, Lucy felt a deep gratitude for this extraordinary bear that had entered their lives, for her daughter whose heart seemed to have no limits, and for the community that had embraced and supported them. The future was still uncertain, full of challenges and possibilities, but Lucy knew that together, as the strange and wonderful family they were, they could face anything that came their way. With each passing day, they were writing a new chapter, not just in their own lives, but in the story of how humans and animals could coexist, learn from each other, and grow together. As the town slept, under a starry sky that seemed to stretch to infinity, Lucy, Hope, Buddy, and Spark rested, united by bonds of love and understanding that transcended the barriers of species. And in that moment of peace, the future seemed to shine with a promise of wonders yet to be discovered. 5 years had passed since that fateful afternoon when Buddy appeared at Lucy and Hope's gate, changing their lives forever. The small town that was once a quiet and forgotten place had transformed into an internationally recognized destination for its innovative research program on interspecies relationships. It was a sunny spring morning, and the town was buzzing with activity. Colorful flags and banners adorned the streets, announcing the celebration of the 5th anniversary of the Interspecies Research and Conservation Center, affectionately known by locals as Buddy's House. Lucy, now the director of community programs at the center, walked through the main square, greeting neighbors and visitors alike. Her step was confident, her smile warm. It was hard to recognize in her the shy and overwhelmed woman from a few years ago. "Mom," called a familiar voice. Hope, now a vivacious 13-year-old, came running, with Spark trotting happily by her side. The once small cub had grown into a healthy young bear, though considerably smaller than Buddy. "Is everything ready for the ceremony?" Hope asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Lucy nodded, putting an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Almost everything. Where's Buddy?" "With Dr. Parker at the center. They're going over the demonstration one last time," Hope replied. Together, mother and daughter headed towards the research center, a modern building that blended harmoniously with the town's traditional architecture. On the way, they passed several community projects that had developed over the past few years: a native plant nursery, a wildlife rehabilitation center, and an outdoor classroom where the town's children learned about ecology and conservation. Upon arriving at the center, they found Dr. Parker and Buddy in the main courtyard. The big bear, now with some silver hairs in his coat, was sitting patiently while the scientist adjusted a device on his collar. "Ah, Lucy, Hope, you're just in time," Dr. Parker greeted. "We're making the final adjustments to Buddy's new health monitoring system." The device was the research team's latest advancement, a non-invasive system that allowed constant monitoring of Buddy's vital signs and behavior patterns, providing invaluable data for the study of bear health and welfare in their natural habitat. As Dr. Parker explained the technical details, Hope approached Buddy, hugging his large furry neck. The bear responded with a soft grunt of affection, gently resting his head on top of hers. "Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come," Lucy commented, observing the scene with a mixture of pride and amazement. Dr. Parker nodded, a reflective smile on her face. "What started as a study of an extraordinary bear has become something much bigger. We're redefining the way we understand animal intelligence, cognition, and interspecies relationships." The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted their conversation. It was Mr. Frank, now the town's mayor, accompanied by a group of people in suits. "Lucy, Elena," Mr. Frank greeted with a smile. "Allow me to introduce you to the representatives from the State Department of Environmental Conservation and the National University. They're here for today's ceremony and to discuss the expansion of the program." The introductions and discussions that followed were a reminder of the impact that the Buddy project had made. What began as an effort to protect a single bear had become a model of conservation and coexistence that was being studied and replicated around the world. As the time for the ceremony approached, the center filled with visitors, scientists, conservationists, journalists, and curious onlookers, all eager to witness the demonstration of Buddy's abilities and hear about the research team's latest discoveries. Hope, in her role as junior research assistant, a title she wore with pride, guided groups of children, explaining to them the importance of the work being done at the center and how they could help protect nature in their own communities. Finally, the moment for the main demonstration arrived. Lucy, Dr. Parker, and Hope took the stage, with Buddy and Spark by their side. The crowd fell silent, expectant. "Welcome, everyone," Lucy began, her voice clear and confident. "5 years ago, our town received an unexpected visitor who changed our lives forever. Today, we want to show you how that chance encounter has evolved into a project that is transforming our understanding of the relationship between humans and animals." The demonstration that followed left the audience in awe. Buddy showcased a series of complex behaviors, from recognizing and classifying objects by color and shape to reading simple symbols and responding to them. But the most impressive was the way he interacted with Spark, guiding him through tasks and showing a level of patience and care that defied traditional notions about bear behavior. "What you're seeing," Dr. Parker explained, "is not just the result of training. It's evidence of an emotional intelligence and learning capacity that forces us to reconsider our ideas about animal consciousness." As the presentation continued, Lucy couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey they had undertaken. She remembered that first night when Buddy appeared at their door and how the initial fear had transformed into a bond of love and trust that had changed not only their lives, but those of an entire community. At the end of the demonstration, when the applause died down, Hope took the microphone. Her voice, though young, resonated with wisdom beyond her years. "Buddy has taught us much more than tricks," she said. "He's taught us about compassion, about seeing beyond appearances, and about the importance of protecting and respecting all creatures with whom we share this planet. Each of us can be a buddy to nature if we just open our hearts and minds." Hope's words were met with a moving ovation. Lucy felt her eyes fill with tears of pride, not just for her daughter, but for everything they had achieved together. That night, after the visitors had gone and the town returned to its usual tranquility, Lucy, Hope, Buddy, and Spark sat on the porch of their house as they had done so many times before. The sky was full of stars, and a soft breeze carried the scent of pine from the nearby forest. "You know, Mum," Hope said, resting her head on Lucy's shoulder, "I think I understand why Buddy chose us that night." "Oh?" Lucy replied, intrigued. "Why do you think it was?" Hope smiled, stroking Buddy's fur, who was lying at their feet. "Because he knew we all needed a family. He needed us, and we needed him, and together we could do amazing things." Lucy hugged her daughter, moved by the depth of her understanding. "I think you're right, my love. Buddy taught us that family isn't about species or blood, but about love and mutual care." As the town slept, this extraordinary family gazed at the starry sky, united by bonds that went beyond the conventional. Buddy, the bear who had changed so many lives, rested peacefully, his presence a constant reminder of the wonders that can happen when we open our hearts to the unexpected. Buddy's legacy went far beyond the small town in the mountains of Montana. It was a testament to the power of compassion, to the capacity of living beings to connect and understand each other beyond the barriers of species. And as the world kept turning, this story of friendship and understanding would continue to inspire future generations, reminding them that at the heart of conservation and respect for nature lies the simple act of reaching out or extending a paw to those who are different from us. Thus, under the blanket of stars, Lucy, Hope, Buddy, and Spark rested, not just as a family, but as symbols of hope for a world where humans and animals could coexist in harmony, learning from each other and growing together in an embrace that encompassed all of nature.